So funny, every time I tell people from America I'm from Canada, especially on stage, immediately, how's it going there,
You want a war? Or do you want to just give me a war?
There's a new NBA champion, and it's a team from Toronto, Canada. Oh!
This is the Prosciutto Masala podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 2 of Prosciutto Masala. Welcome to our 5 listeners.
6.
Today we're going to have 6 listeners.
My mom's probably one of them.
We're going to grow that. Yeah, we're growing
That's
that.
right.
We're taking that to the moon. Today we decided to do a little bit of a more fun episode. The last episode was a little bit dense topic-wise, and with all the depressing stuff happening in the world today, we kind of thought we'd do something a little bit more lighter. So
you don't think Black Lives Matter was funny, bro?
No, yeah, I can't comment on that. Dude, I'm a white guy. I gotta be careful what I'm saying.
You gotta be careful.
You're a minority. You can kind of get away with it more. I gotta be careful.
I can.
You know?
I know.
But yeah, we thought we'd talk a little bit about superhero movies and kind of sci-fi movies and TV shows and the state of it. Whether in the theaters or Netflix on a line. And there's been some good movies. There's been some not so good movies. P and I are very big Marvel DC fans, so we thought we would have a conversation on kind of the future and current standing of some of the Marvel, DC, sci-fi, Star Wars stuff going on in the media. So with that being said, P, the question I have for you is, what would you say is your top Marvel DC movie that you've seen in the past, say, 3 to 5 years?
A Marvel or DC?
Either or. I'll give you 3 range.
Yeah. Okay. So, listen. Actually, let me just say I'm a big Marvel guy, just from my childhood reading Marvel comics predominantly. But of course, I got to give it up for all the Batman movies, and because of that, I stay in the DC game. But in my opinion, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, Marvel has just created this universe, this ecosystem, and they've kind of gone through phases that's just uncompared. It's right now the pinnacle of comic book movies. So I'm a Marvel guy. I'd say I'd go with Iron Man 1. That's the movie that started it out. That's the movie that started out the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? And it just anchored the whole series with one iconic character. So that character of Iron Man itself, with the acting and performance of Robert Downey Jr., I really think paved the way for all the other Marvel movies that came out after. You're putting me on the spot here, brother, but I'd say I would have to go with that. I'd have to go with Iron Man 1.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I wasn't a big fan of the 2 and 3. They were okay. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. is like an amazing actor, and like now it's pretty much it's argued to say that he's like synonymous with Iron Man. Like it's almost, I find, in some of the even animated movies that Marvel is doing. And they've almost made that Tony Stark in the animated movies look more like Robert Downey Jr. Just as the same way they've made what's his name, Nick Fury on Shield. Sam Jackson.
Yeah.
And the comic books are making him look like Sam Jackson, right? So it's interesting how a lot of these actors almost become synonymous with the character, right? But
with the role,
in terms of a favorite, it's tough, man. I mean, for me, obviously, I think we both would agree the Christopher Nolan Batman series was amazing. But for me, that's kind of unfair to include that in the DC universe because it's not really part of the DCU, right?
The DCU started with what? I guess the Superman with the Henry Cavill Superman series, and then I think it's Ben Affleck's Batman, it's Jason Momoa Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Batman versus Superman.
I think so. It's funny to see. So I don't know, in terms of a favorite, I got a bunch, man. I mean, I'm even going to take it back.
Winter Soldier, Marvel, man. Winter Soldier was probably one of my favorite movies. I would say, now, I might even change my answer. I might even see Winter Soldier was the first movie in the new Marvel Cinematic Universe that was kind of dark, kind of edgy, right? It just took the character of of Captain America, which in the Marvel universe, he's the goody two shoes guy. You don't tend to
Yeah.
root for him, right?
Yeah.
Most people,
Yeah.
it's always like, hey, you kind of like the guy with a little bit of a shade of gray,
Yeah.
right? He's a little bit of an anti-hero. But you know what? The way they brought that story, the way they introduced the Winter Soldier and you know the transition from Bucky to Winter Soldier. You know what,
Yeah.
dude? I'm gonna say Winter Soldier is my Marvel movie. And sorry, I
Yeah.
totally cut you off there, but I had to change my answer when I thought about it.
No, that's a good answer. Survey says good answer.
Hey,
No, that was good. The nice thing about Winter Soldier is that it almost and Marvel's been very good at this. Sometimes they drop the ball, but overall they've been very good at this. Is that they focus on making first like a good movie and then incorporate superheroes. Where I find a lot of DC, what they're trying to do is make it too much about superheroes and too cheesy, but then
Yeah.
they kind of give it like add in a good story later, right? It's so funny to see.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've watched any of the animated movies. It's the animate some of the animated movies, dude, are amazing. Like if you can go
Yeah.
online or Netflix, whatever, and watch, for example, Flashpoint Paradox, crazy movie, amazing movie. It's basically almost I would argue to say that if you're under 16 or maybe under like 15, you probably shouldn't watch it because there's a lot of gore, there's swearing, there's a little bit of sex.
Oh,
So they
it's
kind of
dark.
made it. Yeah, they
Oh
made it for
shit.
like an older audience, like really good, right? Basically, the storyline of that is essentially for a lot of people that are listening, the 5 people that are listening that probably don't know, I'm going to tell you anyways, is basically it's about that Flash, basically his mother gets murdered and he goes back
Oh
in
shit.
time to try and save her. But the problem is once he goes back in time and saves her, the reality changes. So what happens is, spoiler alert ahead for anybody who hasn't watched it, but
Oh yeah.
the Justice League kind of changes. So what happens is Batman is no longer Bruce Wayne. Instead of Bruce dying, instead of Bruce Wayne's parents dying, I think Thomas and Martha, Bruce dies, and then Thomas Wayne, his father, becomes the Batman. But he's like more of a badass Batman that like kills people and he uses guns. And then
Yeah.
Superman actually was never even found by I think I forget his parents' name, but it wasn't found by the farmers. It was found by the U.S. government, so they lock him away. And anyways, I won't go into detail, but really good movie. It basically just focuses on like an alternate universe. And
Yeah.
there's rumors coming out that the Flash movie is going to be loosely based on the Flashpoint Paradox kind of storyline. So if you want to kind of get an idea of what they're going to do with the Flash movie, go watch Flashpoint Paradox, and it'll give you kind of a good background to the Flash movie coming out, and kind of it'll be cool to see
Yeah.
the kind of differences, right? What they do with it.
Yeah, I'm gonna add that. That sounds like something to watch. I'm gonna add that to the watch list. Shout out to Thomas and Martha Wayne, by the way. They held it down
That's
before they were brutally
Make a good
murdered.
son.
But yeah, yeah. You know, listen. Like what I think Marvel's done a great job. To your point, is they really go into the character behind each superhero, right?
Yeah.
And then when they flesh that out within that character's franchise, that's what makes it so interesting when they introduce a new Avengers iteration, or there's a Captain America Civil War where they're all on screen, because they kind of build up and they stay very, very true. And this is from a comic book nerd like yourself. Since I was maybe 7 years old, I've been kind of reading Spider-Man, Daredevil, Avengers. Like they stay so true to the characters. And the characters are so rich, dude. This is what people get really dismissive of comic books. I don't think that's the case now. When I was growing up, people were just very dismissive of comic books as a medium.
Yeah.
But I think now you're starting to understand that there's some really gold plots. There's some really good characterization, and Marvel's done a really good job, especially with Iron Man, for example, where they talk about his past and they talk about his addictions and just how flamboyant and how arrogant he is and how he's matures over all those movies. Right, with like maybe that you combine that with like that little bit of the innocence and naivete of Captain America, with also the arrogance and ego of like Doctor Strange. Like all of these things is what for me made all those team ups, right? A little which is a little boy's dream, right? You see all these characters in all the Avengers movies. That's what made it substantial. It gave it some meat. Versus, listen, I really wanted the Justice League movie to work. I really did, but it felt like they crammed
garbage.
Right, they just crammed too many storylines. It's almost like they wanted to play catch up to Marvel.
Yeah.
They saw what Marvel built and like, hey, we got to start introducing all these characters they have the license rights for, and they were going to be $1 billion franchises down the road. Let's just push this together. Versus Marvel, they've been building this up since 2008, 2009, slowly, right? And like every 2-3 years, you see the same character come back in another movie. So that's what I think. That's where I think, I know like Zack Snyder and some of these guys are trying to redo the DC expanded universe, and they should. And I really hope that, when they come back with some of these movies and these storylines, they spend time with each character's background, with each character's personality, really flesh it out, and then bring the team ups, right? Because we all want to see. Yeah, we all want to see Superman and Batman go toe to toe, in the kryptonite suit and just like bash each other out. I want to see that as much as the next guy, but I also want to see a little bit. Give me a little bit of character. Give me a little bit of story.
For sure. Yeah, I think honestly, like, so DC, it's funny. The Man of Steel movie, I think that was Christopher Nolan, and then Batman versus Superman. I may be wrong. I think that was Christopher Nolan as well. Those were okay. I don't think they were amazing, but they were pretty good. I kind of enjoyed them. But then when the Justice League came out, I just was like, what is this garbage? It's almost like a lot of the writers didn't, and this is the opposite with Marvel. A lot of the writers for DC didn't really study the characters enough. Like they were having Batman doing things that is totally out of Batman character. For example, like in Justice League, he was telling all these stupid, cheesy jokes, or he'd get hurt and he'd be like, "Oh, that hurts." Like that's not Batman, bro. Batman breaks a rib and he keeps fighting. He doesn't make stupid jokes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was a little bit annoyed about the writing of it. But it's so funny. Back to talking about like the animated movies. If you watch, dude, I encourage you like to watch 2 or 3 of the DC animated movies. The DC writers that write the animated movies, dude, are amazing. They're made for an older audience. They're really build up the character development, and they're made for like the longtime fans. Versus the Marvel doesn't really come out with a lot of animated movies. Like all the really successful animated movies recently have been DC. I mean, taken Into the Spider-Verse aside, that was a great film as well. But I don't know. I think a lot of I don't know if it's pressure from the studio to do certain things or what, but I feel like they need to do a better job at bringing in people that are real Marvel DC fans that know the storyline, that maybe grew up with some of these superheroes and not just random writers,
Well, I think it's. I agree with you. I think it's it's going to change. It has been changing. You're starting to see fans, comic book fans, who've always been very niche in the past, right? Like pre maybe the first couple of Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, like the 2009 Iron Man. You tend to have the people that were comic book fans on kind of one hand, and they would go to Comic-Con and like follow these releases and be very knowledgeable about the comic book storylines. And then you had like the mass market audience, and they would enjoy, like, for example, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man back in the day, would enjoy like the X-Men movies, but they didn't really care about staying true to the material, the source material, right? The introduction of characters in the proper way. And if you think back, dude, like even the first X-Men, which we all love, but you think about how they wanted to change up the costume, like even something as basic as the costumes, because they just figured, hey, the average person couldn't imagine Wolverine in yellow and blue, right? And Cyclops in blue and like it's just like it had to be black, sexy leather, right? Versus now you're starting to see with the introduction of the Marvel universe, it's almost the other way around, where the fans are actually driving this stuff, right? Like the fans are like writing to the studios, tweeting things, like they're pretty much putting people in roles because of like the reception, with people saying, hey, like this person would make a good so and so, right? But I do want to check out some of those animated movies. I haven't seen one in a long time, but I do know. But I totally believe that, because I know like some of the older Batman comic books, like Batman Year One back in the day, like shout out to Frank Miller, right? Like this is dark material. I remember reading it, like I don't know, I was maybe 14, 15. Like there's some dark, really, really dark material there, right? And so I can totally see if the animated material stayed true to some of these older comics. I could see the material being super, super dark and gritty. And I think like you're starting to see that's the kind of nature you're starting to see in some of these new adaptations of things. People want a darker take. And some of these guys that wrote comic books back in the day are doing these movies now, right? And sometimes they're like Watchmen, for example. I don't know if you saw that, but like, fantastic, by the way. Yeah. And then now you're even the superhero movie-esque type of shows. Like, I don't know if you've seen The Boys on Amazon Prime.
Oh yeah, great film.
That's amazing. By the way, this is the Canada podcast. Shout out to Toronto holding it down. as
Yeah.
the backdrop for I think it's New York City, but that's filmed in Toronto. What a
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
show, dude.
Definitely.
I want to talk about The Boys because that's another thing that's flipped the genre on its head. And I have to admit, I didn't read the graphic novel. I definitely need to get it.
I didn't either.
But
Yeah.
but amazing to see, like, over the last 10, 15 years or so, you're seeing, like, comic book movie after another. Just that's really what people go to the theaters for. They just want to see superhero movies, and it's now so mainstream that something like this, for this to come out where they depict superheroes as, maybe not the greatest guys,
Yeah.
right? And maybe, like, hey, in a world with superheroes, could they fall victim to corporate greed and vanity, and pride and all that stuff? But that's an interesting narrative as well. Tom, how did you like this last? Have you watched both seasons? How did you like it?
Yeah, so in regards to The Boys, excellent show. It's really cool being from Toronto or even a Canadian, just having visited Toronto, seeing a lot of the landmarks in there, like Roy Thompson
Roy
Hall and
Thompson
a lot of
Hall,
the streets.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool, right?
Yeah.
But really good show, very well written. I think you're going to start to see a lot more kind of this like anti-villain type shows and movies coming out. Like it was already kind of like that with what was another movie that they kind of did an anti-villain. Was
Might
either a
have been The
show-
Watchmen, eh?
Maybe, yeah, kind of like that, right? Like kind of cool, like you're almost rooting for kind of
Yeah.
like not the bad guys, but they're kind of these heroes that have problems that aren't perfect, and it kind of makes them more relatable, right? And the cool thing about The Boys, and it's funny seeing like these different writers that are hired by these different corporations, because I think as much as I love DC Comics and stuff, I think they're dropping the ball. And for me, I kind of I don't know what happened. I think just taking a step back and looking at like the history of like superhero movies over the last 10, 15 years,
Yeah.
really it's only picked up like severely in the last, like I'd say like 5 years, 7 years. Before that, there was once in a while there was a movie like the original Batman's with Michael Keaton. I think people could say those were great. Jack Nicholson, right?
Yeah.
Amazing, timeless movie.
Val
For me,
Kilmer.
absolutely, yeah. The most Batman Forever, the most. Oh no, that was Batman, not Batman Forever, was it?
Batman Forever was Val Kilmer. That's right.
Val Kilmer. That was probably the
Val
most
Kilmer.
romantic of the Batmans. I like that one.
I think so.
Kiss
Wait,
from
that
a
was
Rose?
the one with
Kiss from
Val-
a rose on the
Rose.
grave.
Oh
Ooh.
yeah, there was a
Great
Seal.
song.
Seal did the soundtrack.
Yeah,
That's
Seal,
right.
yeah.
That was low key, solid
Oh, man.
soundtrack, man.
That
Some
I,
bangers
cry,
on that.
I would listen to that soundtrack in my room and cry
Whoa,
myself
yeah.
to sleep sometimes, man. It was a
I might-
very romantic soundtrack.
I might actually add that to my playlist.
Oh, great
I
song.
might
man.
actually
Great
just
song.
see. They must have a Batman Forever playlist on Spotify. I'm gonna add that.
I think so.
Yeah, no, okay. So we have Val Kilmer Batmans. We had the George Clooney Batman.
Nobody's gonna talk about that one though. That one we'll forget about. That was like
You know
we'll
what?
give George Clooney.
I gotta say, dude, like, because that was maybe, I don't know, maybe when I was 11 or 12 when that movie came out, and that's when I know you and I were probably playing with
Mr.
action figures.
Freeze. Arnold was Mr.
Mr. Freeze, that's
I
right.
forget. Yeah.
I have to say they made it was kind of like, at the time I think it got like trashed, but I look back at the costumes, they're not bad, man. The costumes were creative.
Jim Carrey was good, man. He played a great Riddler.
Jim Carrey's good, but like the
Yeah.
bat suit, dude. Just going back to the bat suit, even the Robin costume looked good. The Robin costume was fire. Chris O'Donnell's costume. Anyways, yeah. Other than that, yeah, the plot was pretty bad. I remember. I think one scene he pulls out a credit card, bat credit card. Like they just started. Then
cheesy,
they started.
yeah.
They get cheesy with it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but different time, right? But
It was a
it's
different
interesting to see the evolution of superhero movies. Like for me, for example, like I think there's a lot we can learn from the old ones because I found with certain movies excluded, I think for the most part, I remember in the 90s, man, there was some really good superhero movies. Like even comparing them to now, I feel like in the 90s, obviously there's a few exceptions, but I can name a whole bunch of movies that they focused a lot more, I feel like, on the storyline and making just a cool movie, and not so much like with now. I feel a lot of the especially DC, they're focused on like how they can make sales and how they can sell toys, and it's almost like they're trying too hard to make it family friendly. Just make a good movie, people are gonna like it, right? Like for me, for example, one of my favorite Marvel movies of all time, man, is probably Blade 1. That for me was like ahead of its time.
Answer.
Blade 1 and
Good
Spawn.
answer.
Like, I know everybody
Blade
went.
2 wasn't bad either, dude.
No,
Blade 2
Blade
was
1 and 2. Blade 1 and 2 were good. Number
Blade 1
3
2
was
were
a
good.
little bit, but Blade 1 and 2,
Yeah.
100%. And even
Yeah.
for me, like when I know everybody went crazy recently about, Black Panther, and unfortunately, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman, great actor. I know everybody really loved that movie, and they went kind of crazy, saying, "Oh, it's the best, black superhero movie of all time." For me,
Yeah.
like it was good, but for me, looking
Yeah.
back to like Spawn, man, Michael John White, and
Shaft, maybe.
yeah, Shaft. But for me, Spawn and
Yeah.
Blade 1 and 2, man, were like, I think ahead of its time. Like, you go back and watch those movies now, they were
Yeah.
good movies, right? So I
Yeah.
feel
You
like
know
we
what? I
got to
didn't
get
even think
back
of
to that.
Spawn, but Spawn was black.
Oh man, he's awesome.
Spawn was a
I-
brother. I never realized that until
I'm
now.
calling it
That's
right
right.
now. They're gonna.
Yeah.
I don't know. It might take a couple years. They're gonna
They
reboot
should reboot
Spawn.
that.
They
They should
need to,
reboot
dude.
that.
Such
Who
a
do you
good
think should play
character.
Spawn now? Who would you put as
Ooh,
Spawn?
good
Who
question.
would you put as Spawn? I'm trying to think.
Who would
Michael
you
B.
put?
Jordan, although he wasn't Black Panther. Michael B. Jordan, maybe?
Maybe. You know what, man? There was rumors actually of him being Black Superman, which I think would be awesome.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
That would be cool. I'm trying to think who's like because there's a lot of like guys that fit that profile, but aren't they the right age? I would think. Right, Idris
don't
Elba,
know.
maybe Idris Elba, maybe I don't know. I
don't
can't
know.
remember how young was Spawn. Was Spawn young? I should look this up.
I don't know, actually. I don't know.
Okay. Well, Spawn, yeah, Spawn is. I'm so glad you brought up Spawn. I
Oh,
need to go
such a
watch
good
this. I'm
movie.
gonna go watch
Dude.
the Dark Knight, the Dark Knight animated movies, the shows on Netflix. I'm gonna rewatch Spawn.
Dude,
That is some
honestly,
good
Spawn, the
entertainment.
special effects in Spawn, I might be wrong, but it was, I think, pretty revolutionary for special effects at that time. Like, there was no other movies that came out like that had those cool special effects like that.
Yeah.
Great movie, great movie. And I think a lot of people forget about those old movies, right? I think they need.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for them to reboot to Blade again. I heard there's rumors of a Blade show. I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then I really love them to redo Spawn, because Spawn's a cool character.
Yeah, Blade 2, if I remember correctly, was I actually think that was probably my favorite movie out of the series. I think you're right, Blade. I think Blade 1 was really good, but then Blade 2 just took it to another level. I just remember the fight scenes, how gritty they were, and then they just then Blade 3 was just a goose egg. They had to bring in Ryan Reynolds and Jessica Biel. I thought that was trash.
You know what it is? They switched.
yeah.
I think they switched the director or the writer, so it
happened,
felt a little bit different. You could kind of tell from the first two.
Yeah.
They had the same director or producer, and then they switched it, and that kind of is why I think it had a different feel.
You got to have continuity, right? Like that's why I feel Marvel's done a good job, because Jon Favreau's still part of that, like the story writing process, right? Like the guy who did the first movie to kick off that entire universe is still involved, right? And you have the same guys and girls and I've seen some of the behind the scenes, how detailed they are. Like if you look at their like war rooms, they just have like posted notes everywhere about all the character details.
Yeah.
When did this character appear in the last movie, to cross reference here? And they're just really thinking through it, which is the kind of detail I think and the respect that comic books deserve, right? Like comic books have been around for generations before us, right? These characters have been so loved.
Yeah.
They've been like written about in different ways, but you got to stay true to the source material.
Yeah.
But dude, like regardless of Marvel, DC, whichever studio, what I want to talk to you about, and we talked about The Boys, what I want to talk to you about, this idea of these things translating to TV, which is like, I think maybe even 3 or 4 years ago, you and I would just kind of scoff at that and be like, what? So you can't do a superhero movie justice as a TV show? But dude, I have to say, like watching The Mandalorian this year, I don't know if you saw The Mandalorian season 2, but it is cinematic, right?
Yeah, it was very good.
Watching it in your basement, in your family room, on your big screen, on your flat screen. Oh man, I was blown away at how they could adapt that, which is normally a theatrical cinematic experience, onto your TV. Dude, I gotta say, man, outside of the original Star Wars, The Mandalorian season 2, I'm jumping from Marvel and DC right to Star Wars here, but I gotta say that is the best piece of Star Wars material that's come out. The last 3 movies that came out were just garbage.
Dude,
The
100%.
Mandalorian season 2
100%.
comes in, adds so much to the series. Where Star Wars, what is it now? 3, 4, 4, 5, 6. So that was the original. What are we talking? I always get
7,
so
8,
confused.
9, I think, is the
7,
the
8,
newest
9.
one.
They should
Yeah.
just release an announcement, say those movies don't count. Like just like count them.
Sorry, guys,
Dude,
we made a mistake.
we made a
We're gonna
mistake.
take
Like,
these back. Kind of like
Yeah.
Spider-Man 3. It's almost like the same person that wrote the new Star Wars movies is the same guy that did Spider-Man 3, like with Tobey Maguire. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like,
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
understand. It's so interesting to me and I think Disney. It's weird to me because, for example, Mandalorian, Rogue One.
Rogue One is
What
solid
else?
too.
So like even the animated movies, animated series for Star Wars, the Clone Wars and stuff. Great writing, really good. But then you have the episode 7, 8, and 9, which was complete garbage. I'm a Star Wars
Yeah.
fan. They were
Yeah.
friggin' garbage. You know
Dude,
what I mean?
I almost preferred like Jar Jar Binks and like those first 3. I gotta say, like I know that we grew up during episode 1, 2, and 3, right? Like, and those 3 get ripped up a lot with the original Star Wars fans. They say the prequels were so bad. Hayden Christensen, that whole shit, right?
No,
But
man,
you
I don't agree
compare.
with that. I liked episode 1, 2, and 3.
I want to talk about that in a second,
Yeah.
but I'm saying that because listen, as a Star Wars fan, I obviously was a lot younger when the first 3 came out. I wasn't alive for when the original came out. Neither were you. But if you can sit back as a fan and compare, the first 3 against the last 3, you can say that, okay, as shit as they were, they still added to the Star Wars universe, right? There's like, okay, they talk about the Jedi Order,
Yeah.
what it was like before Order 66. Like this stuff is cool, right? When you talk about 7, 8, and 9, they just recycled the same goddamn storyline,
I know.
right? Changed up some characters, and it was just complete trash.
Yeah.
But I do want to bring back, because what I liked about Mandalorian season 2 is that they weave in some characters that you saw in the Clone Wars, you saw in those other series. It just ties everything together, right? You see characters come through, they reference things that have happened. I don't know about you, man, but like the Mandalorian season 2, outside of maybe Rogue One, you mentioned Rogue One, probably the best piece of Star Wars material in the last little while.
Oh, great. Absolutely, man. That last episode, dude, when I saw the green lightsaber, I'm like, oh, shit.
Oh, shit.
I knew who it was. I knew it. And it was cool.
That's my point, is that, like, you just don't think that's going to happen. You don't think the major character in like this multi-billion-dollar franchise is going to show up on a TV show, right? Yeah. It's partially that, they're like, there's no way Luke Skywalker is going to come on The Mandalorian, right? Like you almost think that, but they did it, right? Like they damn did, and they did a fantastic job. But I think, dude, and like, we talked about COVID in the last episode a little bit, right? And if this is the new reality, where even with a vaccine, we're talking about people not going to public places like they used to. Yeah. If theaters maybe like die down and aren't going to be like where new content comes out, we're talking about the best in comic book adaptation coming out on TV first, coming out straight to your streaming service, which is absolutely crazy.
I made a prediction a while back, and I'm gonna make it again here. Call me Rob Stradamus, because I'm gonna lay some predictions right now. But
Rob Stradamus, tell us, preach.
We might have to have a separate Rob Stradamus segment where I just make predictions for the future. Bitcoin to 1 million. That's another prediction right there.
Bitcoin Bob.
That's conversation.
Right.
Anyway,
we need an appearance by Bitcoin Bob.
Oh, this is gonna happen. But I think what you're gonna see, and I said it like a couple of years ago, is especially now with COVID, I think it's gonna fast track it. Is where you already have now. Everybody's at home. Everybody has streaming services. Everybody has a laptop. A lot of people now get Chromecast, where you can find stuff on the internet, cast it to your TV. And I think that you're going to see the death of the theaters, man. I think there's going to be a few theaters left where you go and it's like a VIP experience and you really enjoy. But if I can stay home, now TVs are getting super cheap. You can get a 60-inch TV for relatively inexpensive. Stay home, comfort of your house, watch it, pause it whenever you want. Why are you going to go to the theaters and spend $50? So I think especially now with like the rich and the poor divide getting even bigger, and kind of like there's almost like seeing a disappearing more so in the States, but in Canada as well, of the middle class, where people are pinching their pennies. Life's expensive, bills add up. So, I think the movies are going to be a thing where you're not going to see dozens of theaters. You're already starting to see it scale back a little bit. And I give kudos to Cineplex for kind of coming out with, Rec Room and stuff like that, and trying to pivot a bit so you kind of get people out a bit more. But I think you're going to have a couple theaters in each city, if that are like really VIP experiences. You go there for like it's a whole evening where you go have dinner, play some video games, watch a movie, maybe have a glass of wine in the theater. And then a lot of these smaller theaters, I think, are going to disappear, man, because people. I know for me personally, and I think a lot of people are like this, just don't want to go spend that much money on when they can watch it at home.
Yeah, yeah. I love how deep you took it. By the way, we went from comic books to future state of entertainment. I thought you were almost going to go into 68-inch screen TVs for a second, but no, I chirp, but no, you're bang on, man. I think people are just going to want to stay at home. You're not going to go into the theaters to watch one of these big blockbuster comic book movies come out. But I think what that means for TV, though, it's great news for the fans. You're going to get some really sick shit on your device, which you've never been able to dream of before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So lots more to kind of watch out for from a comic book perspective. But I'm just came off of binging Mandalorian season 2. I think the Scarlet Witch Vision series is coming out on Disney Plus too.
Yeah, I think that's coming. WandaVision is called, I think. That looks a bit weird, but it looks interesting.
Yeah, hopefully they do. So I know they kind of they had the 1960s black and white sitcom vibe going on there. I kind of like that. If they take that into a different spin, that would be really cool.
I think Winter Soldier. You're probably going to say that. Winter Soldier and
that's right.
Falcon. Yep.
That's going to be, and that's amazing. Those are pretty two pretty big anchor characters in the Marvel expanded universe that those two guys are like kind of like me and you, like they're kind of ebony ivory. They're like they got a good relationship, chirp each other. I'm really looking forward to that. So lots of good TV to come out.
Now, did you see, back to the Mandalorian quickly, did you stay and watch after the credits? Did you see what like the little teaser was?
I did. Do you want me to spoil them?
Spoil it for us.
Okay, so they show Boba Fett and the his girl. I don't know her name. You know what I'm talking about, the girl that was hanging out with him this season, the Asian lady.
Yeah, I forget her name.
Yeah. So they clean up shop in some cantina, and then Boba Fett just sits down on the throne, man. Literally kicks the guy out. And I think this is the guy from the Jabba the Hutt scene.
Yeah.
In back in Return of the Jedi. So I think it's the same character. I think it's the same guy from that whole storyline.
You think it's the actual actor?
No. It maybe. I can't. Like, it's a guy with a lot of prosthetics, right? Like, he's one of those prosthetic alien guys.
Yeah.
And so, this is a good one for a future episode. Reference: who is that guy? Who is that character? And we should know this as Star Wars geeks, but I don't. But I just know he was familiar. Jabba the Hutt. No, just the character. There's an alien, but there's an alien that you probably saw in Return of the Jedi.
Oh, like the fat Bob guy that kind of looks like he's related to Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah, he's like a skinnier Jabba. So this guy's sitting on the throne, and obviously Boba and his homegirl blaze in, and they just take out a bunch of guys. Boba Fett sits on the throne, so maybe this implies that he's now the OG. He's now running that place. That's a pretty cool thing, man. They give you these little nuggets. They give you these little nuggets for the fans, which I don't know if you saw the episode with the Jedi Ashoka with the two lightsabers. Man. Dude, cool. That's like I didn't really get into the Clone Wars. I didn't get into that series, but I understand like she's a pretty big character, like animated character from those shows.
Yeah.
And they just first time they brought her on like live in one of these TV shows, movies with Rosario Dawson. So that was pretty cool. I love that scene.
Yeah.
Mandalorian season 2, fantastic watch. I can't wait to see what comes out next on Amazon. I know there's some superhero stuff coming on Amazon too.
Now, for Mandalorian, what do you think they're going to do? Maybe some predictions for next season. Any possible guesses of what they're going to do? Because I think they're going to do either one or two more.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think they're probably going to be done with. As it's going to break my heart, dude. Baby Yoda is going to be. I think that's going to be the end of that era. And by the way, this is a guy that I kind of. My son was born when the Mandalorian kind of came out. Right, like a year ago, the first season. So I always look at that show as really about fatherhood, like his relationship with Baby Yoda, Grogu, right? Yeah. And so, dude, I kind of teared up at the end, right? He's giving away his kid. I'm putting my kid in daycare right now, so there's actually really close parallel to what's going on in my life,
I
right?
think you should dress up
I mean,
your son as
as
Grogu
Grogu.
and give
Yeah,
him
yeah.
and then you show up. No, even better. You show up to daycare with the Mandalorian helmet, and you dress up the little guy as Grogu, and you give it
Yeah.
away. And I think the teacher will understand what's
They
happening.
will understand, and it's like it's like we're wearing masks. Like, come on, it's a pandemic. It's going to be
Exactly.
great. That's a
It's
great
gonna,
idea. I'm going to do that.
I
But
would.
back to this, right? Like, dude, that scene was fucking emotional, man.
It was
That
good.
scene, that's for me like maybe the scene where like I teared up a little. It's the last time that in a superhero movie, we should talk about this in a second. What's the saddest superhero movie scene that you can recall? For me,
Oh,
it's when Uncle Ben dies, man, with the Tobey Maguire, the original Spider-Man, right?
that was
That's maybe
good.
what.
Number one, honestly,
Yeah,
like people
yeah.
crap on Tobey Maguire, but number one and even two were good, man. I enjoyed them.
Yeah, yeah, but I think like back to round out your question on the Mandalorian season 3. I think they'll probably take it away from the Grogu plot, and I think there's more just solo missions with the Mandalorian, maybe some team ups with the Jedi. Looks like they're bringing characters from some of the books that came out after the movies, so
Yeah.
this is pretty cool. It's Thrawn's a character they threw up. So
Okay.
this I think you're going to see season 3 just more intense scenes, right? A little bit more violent. I think Grogu made it very wholesome because people that don't even appreciate or know Star Wars would look at Grogu like, oh, this little guy's cute, right? So I think we're gonna look for we're gonna see a darker, very darker season 3. But back to that point you brought up. Let me ask you this: what is the saddest superhero movie scene or show
Oh,
you've seen? What really made you cry?
There's only a
It's a
few
safe space.
movies that I've ever cried on, and I'm ashamed to say that I know them off by heart. So the
All right,
first
let's
movie
hear
I
it.
ever cried to was
Yeah.
nothing superhero related, but it was Homeward Bound. Have you ever seen
Homeward
Homeward
Bound is
Bound?
emotional. Come on,
You
dude.
know,
Homeward
dude,
Bound
when
is
the
emotional.
cat's coming over the hill, and then the
Yeah,
one dog, and then the
yeah,
golden retriever's stuck. I'm like, fuck.
yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I remember where I was,
You
dude. It's
stop
funny.
that instant.
I was like maybe 8 years old, and
Yeah,
or maybe a bit older. Maybe I was like 12, 13. And I
yeah,
remember we had company coming over, and my cousins came upstairs, and I was like bawling, and they're like, "What are
yeah,
you crying about?" I'm like, "Shut up! Like, what are you crying about?" And
yeah.
like, I remember that
That was
was
the move back then
yeah,
too. It
that was
wasn't cool for guys to cry back then. Like it is now.
you
Like
know what I
now
mean?
it's like emotional guys. Now
Yeah.
you would flaunt that. You would say openly, "Hey, I cried. I watched The Mandalorian. I cried." But no, Homeward Bound's a good answer. Okay, so what else is on the list?
Superhero movie. Let me think about this for a sec. Um, what's a sad
Come on,
superhero?
you didn't fucking tear up when Uncle Ben died.
That was a good one. Didn't make me
Come on,
cry,
man.
but
Come on.
I
That made me.
sniffled a bit. I sniffled a bit. I'm just trying to think. There's definitely been some. Um, I mostly, you know what, I almost cried during Coco. You seen Coco?
Coco, no. Is
Oh,
is
dude.
this animated movie
So
or?
honestly, I understand when some people are like, "Oh, conspiracies and all this stuff." Coco for me is the most underrated Disney movie ever. Like it never got any promotion. We won't get off topic too much, but you got
Yeah, wait, is this a superhero movie?
it's a Disney. No, it's not a superhero movie. It's a
No,
Disney
Disney.
movie,
Okay,
Disney
okay,
Pixar.
okay.
But Coco got no friggin' exposure. Like it's honestly, go
Mm,
watch Coco, man. If you want to tear up,
okay.
great movie. It's basically about this Mexican kid who loves music, but his family hates music because like their grandfather like left their family alone to go to pursue career of music. And anyways, it's basically about the Day of the Dead, and this young kid, I forget his name. It might be Miguel, but he basically it goes through this journey, like falling in love with music, but really sad movie, really really good. Um,
Coco.
but back to superheroes. I'm trying to think, man. I'm trying to think superhero movies. Um, I don't know. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that.
Yeah,
I think of it.
I'm still gonna go with Spider-Man 1.
That was good.
That's the one, man.
See, for me,
I'll
though,
go.
honestly, was probably it's funny you say Spider-Man 1. I was probably even more so a little bit teary-eyed with Spider-Man 2. For me, you know what the scene that got me in Spider-Man 2 was, man, is when he's holding up that brick wall or whatever that's about to fall on Mary Jane, and like she finally sees that it's him for the first time with his mask off, and she like understands why he's been so missing and why he's like the relationship has been so strained. And for me, that was just like
Oh
it was a little
shit,
bit
son! You got that out of that scene? Fuck, man. What were you taking cinema studies back then?
You know what I mean? It was sad because it's like you feel so bad for Peter, man. He's just like trying to.
No, I mean,
trying to
like,
make it work.
honestly, I could go up now. I can make that connection, but like when that movie came out, I don't know. You were probably 14. You made that connection then.
Dude, I'm ahead of my
You're
time.
fucking ahead of your time, dude. Yeah,
You're
man. That's
talking to Rob Stradamus.
Nostradamus. Even back then, dude. Fuck. No,
Yeah.
okay. No, that's a good answer, man. You went really deep there. I was
That
kind of
one
going
for me.
for like,
Now that you made
yeah,
me think in the archives, that one for me, that
that
scene,
was a
man,
good
I
one.
was like, I had to take a deep breath because I'm like, you know what, dude, I
Yeah,
feel you. This guy's like trying
yeah,
to
yeah,
keep it all together, keep his relationship, save the city, and he doesn't want to
yeah,
tell her, and then she finally realizes it, and he's just like, I thought Spider-Man 2 was very well done. I think he just says like,
yeah.
oh, this is really heavy. Can you kind of move? And for me, that was a big scene.
That is a big scene. That's fucking deep, man. You took that
Yeah, man.
real deep. Yeah, I guess that those are. I can't think of anything else. The last couple movies to come out that I can think of, they're really cheesy. And even in the Avengers, when Iron Man died, that was supposed to be sad, right? Like that was supposed to be the end of an era,
Yeah.
right? It's like no more Robert Downey Jr. in that role. Um, and like the death of like a really premier pinnacle character. But I don't know, that one didn't do it for me. Like I like, okay, all right, I see what they're trying to do, trying to build that mood.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, Avengers was good, definitely good. I wouldn't say it made me super like emotional, but all the Avengers, I would say, were really well done. And I just felt they got better and better. So, um, which actually leads me into a next question. We're gonna wrap it up soon because I know we're getting close to time. We want to keep it within an hour for you folks there because we don't want to lose your attention. But what would you say
point.
is favorite villain? Maybe like a character, even like say villain just in the comic books, but then also actor that's played that villain.
Favorite? Oh man, dude, that's another one. You're putting me on the spot here. Let me think. Let me think. Probably have a good answer here. Huh. Dude, I like this isn't my answer, but I have to say Josh Brolin as Thanos.
Oh
He
yeah,
he, he nailed it, man. He
yeah,
really nailed it.
yeah.
Yeah,
You've kind
super,
of almost for me. There's a certain points in the movies. I'm like, you know what?
yeah,
I kind of
yeah,
understand where the Thanos is coming from. Like, you kind of got to
yeah. Well,
clean up
dude.
shop sometimes. You know? You know what I mean? It's like,
Well, you don't know how many times at work I want to pull a Thanos, man. Just go
I know,
reset. Sometimes you
I
gotta
know,
reset. Yeah,
I know.
yeah. Okay. Anyways, let me think. Let me think this through. Best villain. Yeah, I don't know if I could pick the best right now, but I'm just gonna think through, right? Like, so I'd say Josh Brolin, fantastic job. What else? What are we talking about? Throw some names at me. Throw some
So
superheroes
for
at me.
me, maybe I will answer my own question to help you do some thinking. But for me, one of my favorite
Yeah,
villains, there's a bunch of good ones. One of my favorite villains is just from the comic books is Zoom. I don't know if you watched a little bit of the Flash TV show, or for me, Flash is my favorite superhero.
yeah,
But Zoom is a really cool character because he's really smart and he's basically as fast as Flash, if not faster. So they did a really good job of doing Zoom in the TV show, the
yeah.
DC TV show Flash. And actually, a lot of people don't know that show was filmed in Vancouver, keeping it within our Canadian theme. Got to shout out Vancouver, all my family out there, hopefully listening to the show. But I'm looking forward to the Flash movie. I'm hoping it's good because rumors are that they're basing it off Flashpoint Paradox, which is a very cool storyline. And they might even actually have, they were saying, some of the other Batmans from the other movies as like an alternate universe Batman. So Michael Keaton was saying
Mm,
um, might make a cameo as like playing Thomas Wayne as kind of like a little homage to the original Batmans, right? Which would be kind of cool. But I wonder what they're going to do for a bad guy. But Gorilla Grodd would be cool, or I think Zoom. I think if they did a Zoom character. But in terms of the movies villains, I mean, I don't want to say Heath Ledger. He did an amazing job. I feel like that's kind of most people's go-to. He obviously is awesome. Um,
yeah, yeah. You can't ignore that one. You can't
you know
ignore.
what I
Even
mean?
though I thought that, dude, this is really, this is heresy for me to say this, but I kind of felt the Christopher Nolan movies were sometimes a little bit overrated, dude. Like between even the Joker and between Christian Bale's Batman. I know that's just like shocking for me to say that, but I did at times felt like it was really a little bit pretentious. But anyways, I'll give you another one here. Is I don't know if you've seen the Daredevil series on
A little
Netflix, but
bit. Yeah.
the guy who plays the Kingpin in that series, dude. That
Oh, is
like
it the Michael C. Hall? No, not Michael C. Hall. Sorry,
no Michael C. Hall.
that's
I
Dexter.
got
You're
no, I
talking about the
got
guy from Green Mile, isn't that the guy who played?
is
Oh,
he
no,
in the
no.
Green Mile? No,
Sorry,
no, 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 no,
that's
no.
in the Daredevil
That's
movie.
the Ben Affleck. That's the Ben Affleck
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Daredevil. But hang on, dude, it's gonna bother me now. But dude, this guy made like and again, like I used to read Daredevil, the comics all the time.
Yeah,
I used to
yeah,
read Spider-Man. This guy made that scene just like pop out of a comic page. Like
yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
just played this guy to a T. What's his name? What's his name?
Oh, I know visually who he is, but
You know what I'm
his
talking about,
name I
right?
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He might be a paisan too, might be
I
Italian.
think he's like a fat Italian guy. Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
remember,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so that I would add. I know that's not a movie, but I would add. I would add that portrayal of Kingpin as like top
It
notch.
was good. Yeah,
What's this guy's name? Vincent D'Onofrio.
yeah, yeah,
Is it
yeah.
D'Onofrio or Donofrio? Donofrio.
Then, potato, I think it's D'Onofrio. I
D'Onofrio.
think. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So this guy's a G.
yeah.
That's a solid. I mean,
It was
yeah.
good.
That's my answer, dude.
So what
I'd
I
say
want to talk out a bit about P is a little
yeah.
bit we've touched on a lot of upcoming kind of superhero films, what's happening kind of a little bit with some of the
Mhm.
series and whatnot. But I want to give a shout out to some of the kind of Canadian actors that are holding it down.
Mhm.
Just like basketball, there's a lot of kind of athletes now and good talent coming from Toronto and Canada. We got a lot of good actors here too, man, that we got to be proud of. I mean, obviously, it goes without saying, Ryan Reynolds,
Yeah.
Deadpool,
OG. Yeah.
big. You got Keanu.
Ryan Reynolds has 3, right? He's got Deadpool, he's got Green Lantern,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
he's got one more, Blade. He was also in Blade.
Yes, he was in Blade.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
he's
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
got the
We won't really
trifecta.
talk about Green Lantern because that was a little bit like of
Oh,
a,
dude, that was
not
trash,
the
man.
greatest movie ever.
That was
But
a
hey,
trash movie.
you can't hit every film can't be a home run, right?
That's
So
right. You can't always hit dingers. That's true.
you know what I'm saying. So Ryan Reynolds, definitely big Canadian. Keanu, I don't know if you've seen the kind of considered a little bit of a superhero with Neo and the Matrix and
Yeah.
even John Wick, right? Kind of like that fantasy type action movie, right?
What's another one for Keanu?
Uh,
Constantine.
oh, big one. Yes,
Oh, it's
yes.
great. Underrated movie. I think it was a DC comic.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
so.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
apparently, I was talking to my brother the other day, and apparently they are making a part 2 to that, which should be good.
Oh, that was a great movie.
Should be good. Dude, you know what? When I was doing a bit of research for this, I was surprised myself with some Canadian actors, to be honest.
Oh, yeah?
I didn't realize Hayden Christensen is Canadian.
Oh yeah, I could have told you that. Yeah, I mean, dude, I actually, because we grew up like we talked about Star Wars. We grew up during those 3 movies. I don't like hate them. Like I know a lot of
You know what?
like older generations are like, oh, that's not Star Wars, and
Yeah.
he got a lot of hate for like his portrayal of Anakin. But I can't be mad at it, man. Especially the between episode 2 and 3, like him transforming, going to the dark side. I thought he did a pretty decent job.
Yeah, man. Me neither. You know what? Like everybody hates on those movies. I thought they were pretty darn good.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest Hayden fan. I think he's not the best actor, but I think that role for him was really good, and I thought he
Yeah.
did a pretty good job. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm with
I thought
you.
he did a pretty good job.
Trying to think what else.
Who
Who
else we
else is
got
there?
here? I'm just going down the list. I brought up a whole bunch of people. Stephen Armel, him and his brother, I think Robbie,
Arrow.
Canadians.
Yeah.
Arrow, yeah,
Arrow
yeah.
on the CW.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got Kobe Smulders there from what's her
Yeah.
name? She's from How I Met Your Mother, but she's in Avengers too. She's Canadian.
Did I tell you I met Kobe Smulders in real life?
Did you?
Dude, I met her at a so it was a work event, and she was a brand ambassador for something, and like that was one of my first conversations with a celebrity. Like I know you've talked to a lot of people. I think you talked to Michael B. Jordan at a shawarma spot or something like that, dude. I
had a little chat. Yeah.
I know. They're all human, but I talked to her for maybe 2 minutes. Like I was talking about Avengers and stuff like that, but then I got lost in her eyes, man. I kind of
I
like,
know she's a good looking girl.
but not even like it was that. Like she was a good looking girl, but also she like it was just pure like, oh like shit, you're like in on all the Avengers movies I'm obsessed with, right? Like I just kind of went fanboy.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's one. But yeah, she's Canadian, and
I was a similar kind of thing to Michael B. Jordan. It was a funny situation. I'll tell this story for for all the listeners, but it was like 3 a.m. in a shawarma spot. I think it was
Awesome.
either Fat Bastard or we have some, for all the Americans listening, we have some two amazing burrito joints here in Toronto. One's Fat Bastard Burrito, and the other one is Burrito Boys. And I think it was Burrito Boys. And I was a little bit tipsy, at the time, and it's 3 a.m. You're tired. You're not sure what you're seeing is actually what you're seeing. And I remember looking over my buddy, and I'm like, dude, that guy looks a lot like Michael B. Jordan. And he's like, dude, it's 3 a.m. Just finish your freaking burrito and to go home. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, dude, like I know I'm a little bit sauced, but no, man, I'm pretty sure. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go up and then talk to this guy. Worst case scenario, he's going to tell me to get the hell out of his face, right? So I go up to him, and it was just weird because it was like, the burrito joint was full, and he was just kind of standing by himself talking to one other guy, and there was tons of people around him, and it was weird. Like nobody was really talking to him, right? So I went up to him, and I said, hey, dude, are you Michael B. Jordan? He said, yeah. And dude, the guy was super nice. I talked to him
Seems
for
like a
about
nice
30
guy, just by what
30
I've seen.
seconds.
Yeah.
Surprisingly tall, actually. He's about like 6'2".
Yeah.
And it doesn't really come across in the movies, but really nice guy.
Yeah.
He took a selfie with me, and I said, hey, man, enjoy Toronto. And he was filming Black Panther at the time.
Yeah.
He was Killmonger. And
Yeah.
it's cool, man. Made me realize that, you know what, man? Like it's just, these celebrities, sometimes it's tough because you get a little starstruck, but
Yeah.
they're just people.
They're
man.
just people,
They
man.
have a mother, they have a father.
Yeah.
They laugh, they cry, and it's like, these. So for me, I maybe it'll change if I met like a really, an athlete that I'm like super big fan of. But for me,
Yeah.
I just kind of see a lot of them as like just kind of just regular people.
Yeah. But that guy just got absolutely jacked for Creed. I don't know if you've seen him, man, but that guy like put in the work. Like I'm not a any sense of the word like an expert in the field, but I do box a little bit, and from what I hear, the guy like legit got punched in the face like training with his sparring partner, like prep for them. You could tell that guy like put in work for that movie. So like shout out to
He's a
Creed,
good
man.
athlete.
Creed is a great
He's a good
movie.
athlete. Yeah, he actually played a lot it's funny, in high school basketball. Funny enough, and he just kind of he got away. He talks a little bit about it in interviews sometimes, and he just kind of got a little bit away from it because his father's name's actually Michael Jordan, so he's actually named after his father.
Oh, yeah.
You can imagine growing up playing basketball, being Michael B. Jordan, having this shadow over you and this expectation. So he kind of got away from that. And but from my understanding, he's a pretty good baller.
Yeah, actually, I totally forgot about that. That's right. Like he's become that defined of an actor. Like he's just respected for what he does now. Like that, I think that used to be funny when he first came out. It was like, Michael Jordan, right? Like now you don't even think about that because he's like Michael B. Jordan is like this guy, his body of work. So yeah, man, shout out to Mike. He's a great guy. He seems like a stand-up guy. Too bad he's not Canadian, is he?
He's not.
He's not
No,
Canadian.
just,
He's American.
But Black Panther, the Canadian connection here. Black Panther was partially filmed in Toronto, so that's kind of the Canadian connection there.
Yeah, that's right. Well, actually, this is topical, man. Like the Captain Marvel. I know they just recast young South Asian lady. I think from Markham as well. So like first South Asian lead, in a Marvel movie. So that shout out. I'm trying to find out her name now.
I think. Are you talking about Miss Marvel?
What did I say? Captain Marvel. Yeah, Miss Marvel.
You know what? They're similar. Miss Marvel. They're doing a. Let me just look it up now.
Miss Marvel is Iman Vellani. From Markham. Shout out to Iman. Putting it down. Representing I think it's a show. It's not the movie, but I think they'll probably work her. They're going to probably work her into the extended universe. So like that's huge. Another guy is also I don't know if you ever watched Kim's Convenience. I don't watch it a lot, but I've seen a few episodes. The guy from Kim's Convenience, Simon Liu.
You're talking about.
Simon Liu is
The Golden Rings or something.
What is dude? And like this, I am better than this, man. I would actually be able to tell you.
Okay, let's look it up.
Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
Shang-Chi in the Legend of the Ten Rings. Yeah, you're bang on, man. You remember? So that's amazing, man. Two Canadians, two Ontarians. I think Simon's from. I think he's from Toronto as well, and they're both lead roles in Marvel vehicles, and they're both minorities. So that's pretty crazy, man. Asian dude,
it's big now.
Asian brother.
South Asian stuff.
I'm proud of the fact that a lot of these studios now are starting to realize, okay, like listen, we can't just have like a white male or a white female as the
Yeah.
heroes all the time. Like we have a vastly diverse community, especially in these bigger city centers, and people want to see like they want to see these minorities, and I can imagine, for people growing up, how it would be to not see heroes and superheroes that look like you, and it's got to be tough. So I'm you could probably talk a little bit
Yeah,
about
man.
that about
Listen, man. I know
growing
where you're
up.
going with this, and I can only do Aladdin so many times for Halloween, man. I was like, listen, got me another brown fucking superhero something character to
You
be.
know what I mean?
You know what I mean? So no,
I'm
like,
lucky in that I had so many superheroes
you
to
got
choose from,
optionality,
right?
right? Like, I mean,
But it's like I can imagine.
anything I did, dude, I would have to be like brown in front of it, right? Like it was like brown Batman, brown Spider-Man, like you know what I mean? So like, it's key. Like I've got it, son. I'm like glad that there's like he can see himself. There's a brown Power Ranger, dude. I was watching the other day. Brown Power Ranger on look one of the latest one. Blue Ranger's brown now, like things into Rajiv or something like it's crazy. So, anyways, like yeah, for sure. Like as a minority, as a guy with a kid now, I'm super happy about that. But then like if you just want to take out the like the emotive stuff out of it for a second, like it's good for Marvel to do this too because like they're gonna make more money. They're gonna sell more shit, right? They're gonna expand their audience. So like it's like as much as I want to think it's like hey it's purely like for woke reasons, there's obviously a business agenda to it as well, and like rightly so. Like they're definitely gonna have more people now in Markham supporting Miss Marvel, right? In the South Asian
Dude, it
community,
just
like
makes sense it
yeah,
just makes sense from a monetary perspective.
right,
Like if I'm a producer, like in Toronto and especially Mississauga and Brampton now, like I'm typically the minority visually if you look at it,
oh
right?
you are
There's more
man,
like
you big
Asian,
time
South
are,
Asian people.
yeah,
So it's like, why not do that? It's just makes business sense, right?
yeah,
So yeah, it's nice to see that like kind of I think a lot of the stigma behind making a minority a superhero is not going to look good. I think we're getting over that now, and it's kind of nice. It's obviously we still have a long way to go. I'm really looking forward to honestly a lot more even female superhero lead role films like Wonder Woman, Captain Marvel.
Captain
There
Marvel
has
was, dude, like Captain Marvel for me, like they really did well with that storyline. Like they made, like like they sometimes I feel like they try to force a strong female character, right? Like rightly or wrongly, sometimes it's picked up from an adaptation. There's very little you can do. Like Wonder Woman's backstory is Wonder Woman's backstory. You can't really like I feel like with Captain Marvel, they could have made that so cringe that movie, but they actually made like from my perspective, right, as a male speaking, like it seemed like, hey, this is a well-rounded, strong female superhero. And I know, like, I like the Wonder Woman movies too. I feel the Wonder Woman movies for me feel a little bit forced. Right, my perspective is like they're forced to make it like an empowerment thing, but historically the character might not always have been rooted in those origins. But Captain Marvel, man, like I'm glad that she's I love Brie Larson. I'm glad like they're keeping her as a staple character. Like well done, they hit it out of the park with that one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward, man. I think Marvel is you know um is being led by Disney in the right way. I think Disney is screwing up Star Wars in another regard, but I think they're doing a really good job with Marvel. And I think if you look at the whole MCU and they have like their plan for the next 5 years, apparently in TV shows and content. And dude, they're coming out with like a lot of cool, like we just talked about, like kind of different superheroes. Like you have like, kind of the Asian superhero, you have the South Asian superhero now. They're coming out with She-Hulk. They're coming out
Mhm.
with all these different things, and I think it's smart. And I think you're gonna see a lot of these TV shows transition into movies and potentially like franchise movies, where it's
Franchises,
like,
yeah,
you know what I mean. And I'm excited, man. Like like I said, I enjoyed Captain Marvel 2. I enjoyed Wonder Woman. The second Wonder Woman
yeah,
was okay, but
yeah.
I like to see it. And I think the stigma is that a lot of maybe guys won't like to go see a female superhero
That's
movie.
bullshit,
That's
though,
just
man. Like
stupid. It's stupid.
that's
Yeah.
stupid. Like if you give us a good plot, it's not forced, right? Like kind of just fits in that universe. We're gonna see it, right? Like I'm not the kind of guy who I know people had like issues with Ghostbusters movies, like recast with like I get it when you're like I really do get it when you have an emotional connection to a character and it's portrayed differently. You're naturally going to react, maybe not so positively in support of it, but like like I'm willing to see good trade-offs of like historically male characters if they can make it work, right? That's been the thing. Like there's been some movies it's just so cringe, but I think you're right. I think it's such a fallacy to think that, you know, guys wouldn't be interested, or you know guys would kind of write it off. Definitely disagree. Dude, I don't, for you and for our listeners, that might be a spoiler alert, but are you up to speed on WandaVision? I'll tell you
Yeah,
what.
man. Yeah, I just
Okay.
watched some the other night, and
Okay, so
it
spoiler
started
alert.
off the first couple
Spoiler alert.
episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Spoiler alert
spoiler
for
alert.
anybody. If you're not up to date, stop listening. But dude, like bringing in the fucking X-Men movies as a crossover excites me.
Yeah,
And actually, that's what I
yeah.
want to. We can take that a few different ways. Like, just want to see that, you know, like Deadpool, etc., come into this universe. But I just want to put one thing out there. Bring it back to Canada here. Hugh Jackman will always be Wolverine, right? Like, I'm not gonna dispute that. But dude,
He's iconic.
if they're recasting Logan, they should put a Canadian actor in that.
I think so, because doesn't Wolverine have some Canadian
man.
influence?
Yeah, man. I don't think they say where he's from, but the guy lived like a lot of his life in Canada. Like,
Let me look this up. Where is Wolverine from? Let me look this up.
And then also,
you're right. Canada. The Canadian flag comes up right away.
Yeah,
I
man.
did not know that.
Wolverine, bro.
Wow,
Wolverine.
I knew like he trained in like Alaska and kind of near Canada, but yeah, man, we need a Canadian actor then.
Yeah, man. I'm telling you. So now that Marvel acquired the rights, right, for those movies, I'm sure they're going to try to like rework the characters and bring it back into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So Marvel, if you guys are listening, you got to cast a Canadian brother in that role, you know, or sister, man, or sister. Maybe you can make a female Wolverine if you do it right.
Like Weapon 21 or Weapon
20. Yeah,
I think there was a Weapon 21 or 22 was like a female, right? She was in the Logan movie.
She was in the Logan movie. Right? Yeah.
Lisa or Laura or something.
Yeah. So I think what I heard is that they're all going to get recast, right? Like all the X-Men characters, they're going to get recast when they come back into this universe. But I think they're obviously going to keep Deadpool, because like Ryan Reynolds is killing it as Deadpool, and you can play him for many more movies. So Deadpool will be Deadpool played by Ryan Reynolds. But I think
they're going to keep Quicksilver too. It looks like
Quicksilver looks like he's going to be kept. Yeah,
right. Because you saw the last WandaVision episode, right?
I did, man. Yeah, and that's the spoiler. That's the spoiler alert for our listeners. But yeah, Quicksilver. And I can't remember the gentleman's name, but the guy who plays him in the last couple of X-Men movies shows up. Big WTF moment. Sorry, but I think that's like it's exciting if you're a comic book fan. If you're just a fan of Marvel comic book, like this whole studio bullshit where like Sony owned one part of it and like Disney owned it. It was annoying, man. Like the fans just want to see like we were just saying, like the fans want to see these storylines adapted right in their purest form. And I think like even when they brought the Spider-Man here, like we were saying, I love the Tobey Maguire movies, but it felt a little bit. Marvel does a good job making them a little bit more comic booky. Like the Peter Parker, like the storyline's a little bit more like just flat jump for me, right?
It seems Sony. I don't understand all the rights with who has what, but from my understanding, Sony owns Spider-Man and X-Men, so they basically own those rights, and then occasionally they do partnerships with kind of like Marvel, where it's like in association with Marvel. So, but I think like what's happening, I think you're gonna start to see it more, is that Sony is going to start to basically partner war with Marvel because they realize that they don't know what the hell they're doing. Like friggin' Venom was terrible. There was a couple of the Spider-Mans that were good, but I find they try to play it too safe, and they're not great at character development. I don't know if they just don't have the right writers or what they're doing, but Marvel is doing an amazing job. And like we talked about earlier in the podcast, is DC's got to step up their game because they're trying too hard to kind of rush character development all in one movie. And I'm looking forward to, I know in a couple weeks, the Snyder Cut is coming out. I kind of have low expectations. I don't know how much more they can do. If they have so much unused footage that they're going to make it like a totally different movie. I just thought the writing in that movie was really bad. Like we talked about, kind of, just character development wasn't really great. They tried to rush it, but we're going to see.
Actually, we should come back and talk about, we should both watch the Snyder Cut when it comes out. Maybe we should talk about that, because I know they recast Jared Leto as the Joker. They actually filmed new scenes. So it's not just like the recut, but they filmed.
Interesting.
Yeah. They filmed
I didn't know that.
They filmed new content. So that I'm actually pretty stoked. And like the whole thing was that like Snyder never really got a chance to like manifest his vision, right? And like, so this is now like them saying like, hey, this like Justice League could have been a better movie if he got some creative licenses. So they're giving it to him. So it's going to be on HBO Max. We should definitely catch that. Some point, maybe we do a reaction video. Maybe for like, actually, you know what? That's a question to the fans, right? Like, if you, or to our listeners, if you guys want us to break down a movie or break down that movie, let us know. Rob and I will do it. But yeah, man, I'm actually excited. I stopped thinking about that for a bit. I totally forgot that's coming out. That's a must watch.
I'm excited. We're gonna see. I when I saw Jared Leto in Suicide Squad, it's almost like I felt the analogy I can give is like almost like when somebody like is about to give you dessert and then they give you like the tiniest little sample like from Baskin Robbins and then they're like, oh, you're not gonna get the full cone. It's like I just tried a sample. I want the full fucking cone. So with Jared Leto, it's like I got a little sample, but he wasn't enough in the movie that I couldn't form a judgment.
Well, I think
I couldn't even tell if he was good or not because I didn't get a chance.
But see, I know you're a Batman fan because like that's like that punk like Joker. That's a character. That's a vibe. Like that's a character from like the comics and stuff. But like a lot of people, so used to like the deep, the very deep kind of Jokers that have been played by like Heath Ledger and like Joaquin Phoenix. Like they kind of wrote that character off. But like for the real Batman fans, like that whole neo goth punk Joker. Like, I'm with you, man. I wish we got a little bit more of that. But hey, he's going to be in the Snyder Cut.
It's going to be interesting. So I think we're almost out of time. Thank you guys for listening so much. We could, talk about this topic for hours, but, we got to kind of keep it concise, keep you guys hooked. Any inquiries, any questions, hit us up at prosciuttomasala@gmail.com. And we appreciate everybody who's a subscriber or listener or whatever. And we love you for listening. We love you guys, and we will see you next week.